Hi everybody, it's your old pal Chuck, and I'm back with another review. Today, we're continuing our look at the Wave 3 of the Combiner Wars figures, and now we're moving into the Protectobots. And I figured, what a great way to start off than with First Aid and Streetwise. And I'm really proud of myself because for most of the day I've been calling First Aid Red Alert. It's been how many years? Over 10 years since Red Alert was an SUV, and it's still stuck in my head. But this is First Aid and Streetwise. As you probably know, both are extensive retools of Stunticon figures, Off-Road, and Dead End. We'll do a little comparison later on, but I figured just give you a look at the figures right now, and we're going to go in for a deeper look. Starting us off will be Streetwise. Right off the bat, Streetwise comes with a new accessory. This triple-barreled pump-action shotgun. Kind of weird that auto robots would use a pump-style weapon, since those are really for close-quarter combat and stuff. But it is very nice, and I do have to say I wish the Stunticons came with weapons like this. It is really cool, and I'm hoping that when we get the Masquerade tribute limbs for Optimus Maximus in Wave 4, we see, instead of melee weapons, traditional blaster style weapons. The other accessory Streetwise comes with is, of course, just the little combiner limb. It's the same that Dead End came with, but done all in black. Speaking of Dead End, let me bring him in here so you can see just how much has been retooled. It is incredible, um, the amount that went in. First, the panels here on the legs. As you can see, Streetwise has like a layered ridged pattern, and Dead End is mostly flat. The hips and shin, the upper legs are pretty much the same. Waist is the same. Now the forearms. This is what kills me. The forearms are actually different. At first, I thought they were the same, and while they do have the same basic pattern, let me zoom in here a bit. As you might be able to tell, Streetwise has this raised tech detail that Dead End doesn't. That's really cool, and that's not something I was expecting. The chest panel are also uh, different, whereas on Streetwise, it's really made to look like the front of his car, and Dead End is more of a tech difference. And obviously, the heads are different molds entirely. There is actually also some differences in vehicle mode, which we're going to look at right now. One thing I neglected to mention in robot mode, and this is a little bit of a negative, is unfortunately Streetwise features the same loose hips that Dead End did. While the robot mode can stand fine and do various poses, I can see this becoming an issue later on when using Streetwise as an arm for Defensor, that over time those ball joints will weaken further, that they wouldn't be able to hold a traditional pose. Now in vehicle mode, believe it or not, there is even more new molded parts. Basically, this whole front hood section and front bumper is entirely new. The windshield is actually completely different, including the molded light bar here. Just popping it up, it's a whole different shape. Obviously, we saw the front of the legs, but here, the rear of the car is actually the back of the legs, and that too is an entirely new piece that even goes up to that central section right there. It's impressive that Hasbro nowadays really goes that extra mile when they're reusing a mold to make it that different. It'll be interesting to see going forward um, how they're going to change it, if they'll change it, for Sideswipe, which is the rumored next use of this mold after Wild Rider, which is going to be a straight repaint of the dead end mold with a new head that will be released to Market 6 stores. Now, let's take a look at Streetwise in its various limb modes. And here's Streetwise in leg mode. Pretty simple, pretty plain, same as dead end. It works. One thing I'm sure you've probably noticed is one of the nice things that Hasbro did is Streetwise isn't a straight white figure. It's a little off-white, more like a cream color. I think that's kind of cool because it helps differentiate from First Aid. And on the total combined form, it'll break up the various color palettes nicely. And here's Streetwise in ARM mode. I think if we go back to the original G1 Defensor, Streetwise was actually an arm, but I think for this Combiner Wars version, it's going to be a leg. But then again, it is Scramble City, so you can make it whatever limb you want. It's kind of cool. I mean, it's the same. It looks basically the same as Dead End. Nothing new or exciting here. Just as always, be careful that because the port right here is set in a little into this housing of the vehicle, you really want to make sure you push it in and it's in there securely. Let's take a look at First Aid. And here's First Aid. First, I remember really liking the original First Aid. It was, I think, one of my favorite of the Protectobot molds. It was just a simple ambulance. And I think since I didn't have Ratchet, it was nice to have a sort of Autobot medic on the team. As I mentioned in the beginning, First Aid is an extensive retool of Off-Road. So here's Off-Road, and I think seeing them together, you can see just how much went into it. Basically, the panels here on the arms, completely different. I would actually go far as to say it's a completely different arms. That's going ahead and move the pegs around. The legs, absolutely completely different. The shells are vastly different. As you can see here, let me just remove the limb. They do share the same weapons and the limb mode. Just done up in black, as well as the axe there, which I guess kind of works for First Aid as a rescue device. I would have preferred a blaster, but I've said that a lot. As you can see, the entire leg section is different. It's all new paneling. Basically went ahead and moved those weapon ports down to the legs, which I think is kind of cool. And of course, the heads are different. What is similar is the fact that they share the same leg transformation, which is basically the same leg transformation that all the aerial bots have, which kind of makes me wonder if these were all, a shared buck with Alpha Bravo, who is the other new character in the Combiner Wars line thus far. I know there's Rook, but we'll get to him a bit later. I know it's my crazy theory, but so we'll just go ahead and take a look at these guys in vehicle mode. Now this is where you can really see the extensive retooling, because basically this figure, this mold, went from being a sports pickup truck to a rescue SUV with a futuristic look to it. Very impressive. Obviously, new front end, new roof. It actually changes the transformation slightly. Whereas here on off-road, you have one point where the hood of the car clips into the torso of the body. On First Aid, it actually clips in where the light bar is, but then also pegs in up front into the shoulders. Very interesting. They've gone ahead and retooled the back. They do leave the limb module connection port, which I do want to show off right now. Originally on off-road, it would just peg in like this. If I can do this right. Oop, there we go. Obviously, it would be purple since that's what his colored limb is. On First Aid, you're actually going to go ahead and bring the thumb down, and it's going to work a little bit like a claw. And even what's really surprising, they show that in the instructions. They didn't do that before. And they also show you to peg the axe in here on the side. You can do it either side, however you want. The van does roll quite nicely. I have noticed there are a few issues with the panels pegging in. I almost want to say that on the front here, there's a bit more of a groove where the pin and hinges on this side, and that kind of affects the connection. But all in all, it's a really cool looking vehicle. As you can see, the panel lines, the paneling, and all that just really make these two vehicles different. Now, with the new paneling, there are a couple different bits to Red Alert's limb transformation, which I'm going to show you right now. Okay, we're going to start off with leg mode, so we're starting in vehicle mode. Basically, the first thing you want to do is come in and bring up this whole front windshield section and just leave it hanging back like that. Next, what you want to do is come up front and, well, unfortunately, you're going to have to unpeg the arms to be able to do this properly. I know some people can swing it around without doing this. I unfortunately can't, because what you need to do is you just need to be able to loosen up, rotate the head around, and loosen up those panels so you can swing the connector port up. And then what you want to do is go ahead and close everything back up as it was. This rear section does peg in a lot tighter than it did before, and make sure you have everything flat down and yeah, very tight connection. And then just go ahead and bring the arms back in just like that. Now this windshield, there's actually little grooves, you almost miss them in the blue paint there, right behind the side view mirrors that will secure the roof section. That also works in robot mode. That was there on off-road, but at least with off-road the colors were a little darker, it was a little easier to see. And here's first aid in leg mode, where this will be its standard configuration for the Combiner Wars Defensor. I think in the original G1 it was an arm, which we'll get to in a moment. But, it's the standard thing. It does have a slightly different silhouette than off-road's leg mode. But let's take a look at arm mode. Okay, we're just going to go from leg mode to arm mode. Usually, I always recommend arm mode is on all the Combiner Wars figures thus far is better attained by going from robot mode. But it's not that much more difficult from leg mode. Basically, what you want to do is open that panel, get it out of the way, go ahead, swing the peg down, but what you want to do is just be able to get in there and rotate the robot head around. Next, you're going to come in, swing out and up the robot arms. We'll get to those in a minute. We're just going to focus on the legs. Go ahead. It really does seem like you're breaking this every time you do it, but go ahead, pop those legs out. You're going to swing them around. If you've done this on the aerial bots, if you've done this on off-road, you kind of know what we're doing. Just go ahead, bring that around. We'll get to that in a moment. Now you're going to go ahead and free up these panels so you can bend the arms backwards. And the reason you're doing that is there's a white tab right where my finger is that's going to fit into a slot. And you want to make sure you have the arms fully extended and they're going to angle somewhat backwards and keep that panel down. Now, the arms do actually bend back several clicks. And like I said, you just want to make sure it will be on an angle, just like so. Keep that panel down, and then go ahead and then bring the front of the car down, like you would for robot mode or leg mode, onto those grooves. That'll hold it in place. So, of course, now, there's the arm. Let's go ahead and bring in the hand. I know some people have started complaining that they're getting tired of these limbs. They would rather have independent hands and feet. Personally, I like these limb modules. It's kind of something different, and it does give you some built-in weaponry. But here's First Aid in limb mode. I hope I haven't slipped a couple times and said red alert, but very nice, very neat, really cool, fun transformation. And like off-road, it has a nice little heft and mass to it. So we'll pause, and of course I'll give you my final thoughts. One of the reasons why I actually did First Aid and Streetwise as a pair is because one of these molds will be used for Prowl in that Masquerade Tribute G1 combiner using forming Optimus Maximus that's coming in Wave 4. The comic that came with First Aid showed a different head on this body that looked very close to Prowl, but many have pointed out doesn't features a seamless crest that is closer to Ratchet. Many have assumed that Streetwise would just be the repaint with a new head into Prowl because it's a police car. But in the comics now, Prowl is more like an SUV. Personally, I think it's going to be First Aid just because that is the going look in the comics with the SUV, and the fact that we just had a Masterpiece Prowl in his classic car mode, as well as that classics figure, which was very good. And let's not forget, we also had a Legends class figure a couple, maybe 3 years ago. Either way, it's going to be really cool and really fun to see what differences they make to these molds, if any, to change them further besides giving them new heads. Now, Wave 3, Big Bad is supposed to be getting it this month, April 2015. Amazon is saying June. So, who knows? Because keep in mind, those Market 6 limbs are supposed to be coming out in May. Either way, you might start seeing the protector bots fairly soon, and really they're worth a pickup. I'm having a hard time thus far because I've only worked with these two. I'm trying to figure out which one's my favorite. I'm kind of leaning more towards Streetwise just because I like that shotgun, but who knows? Regardless, definitely worth a pickup if you want Defensor. This is your old pal Chuck for First Aid and Streetwise. We'll see you next time.